Good morning, distinguished members of the committee, distinguished representative of the Republic of Lithuania, colleagues and all participants. I now call to order 805th first meeting of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This morning, the committee will continue its consideration of the periodic reports of Lithuania under Agenda Item 5, consideration of reports submitted by state party under Article 35 of the Convention. I would once again like to welcome the delegations of Lithuania headed by Ms. Lita Grigariene, Vice Minister of Social Security and Labor of the Republic of Lithuania. We will now continue the Cluster 2 with 20 minutes for back-to-back questions and answers. I give the floor to our task force member responsible for this cluster, Ms. Alfredo Quasi, to continue the questions. Mr. Quasi, you have the floor.
Merci bien, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the delegation for their answers yesterday. We will be talking about Article 17 on the protection of the person's physical integrity. According to the information at our disposal, Lithuanian legislation in some cases still authorizes medical interventions on women with disabilities without their free and informed consent. Article 2.25 Paragraph 2 of the Civil Code of Lithuania allows a guardian, upon legal authorization, to consent to procedures such as sterilization, abortion, or castration on behalf of a person who has been declared to not have legal capacity. The draft reform on legal capacity of 2026 does not, it would appear, address this provision, nor does it allow for any effective legal remedy for the victim. Could you please tell us what has been done to prevent and prohibit forced treatment, such as forced sterilization, for instance, on persons with disabilities, and if they are intersex, what is done to prevent them from undergoing medical and surgical operations that they have not consented to? Second question, could you provide figures regarding the legal authorizations, the number of legal authorizations for these sterilizations? Thank you.
Labas rytas, gerbiama.
Good morning, Ms. Chair, committee members. Thank you for the question. The question is, what could prevent ill treatment against women with disabilities, against such things like forced sterilization and other coercive measures? Ramunė Andriušaitienė, the representative of the Ministry of Social Security and Labor, will respond to the question. Thank you for the question. Please note that at the moment in Lithuania, in all cases, in order to carry out such interventions, a court order is needed. It's not sufficient to have just the request of the guardian. Lithuania is heading towards the abandonment of such forced interventions. In all cases, they should be carried out only with the consent of the individual. So we are heading towards that step by step. That is towards the abandonment of the institute of incapacity. That is, such interventions should be carried out only with the consent of the person in question. Ingrid Balčiūnienė from the Ministry of Justice will supplement the response. Good morning. Thank you for the floor. Very briefly, I will supplement the response. As we said yesterday, we have drafted amendments to the Civil Code and the related legislation, providing for the abandonment of the Incapacity Institute. We are working on these drafts and we are prioritizing this question so that it comes into effect as soon as possible. Thank you. Ačiū delegacijai.
Thank you for your answer. We have received information according to which the Regional Court of Kaunas found in 2019 that a woman had been sterilized during a cesarean section without her knowledge and without her consent. This was at the request of her relatives, and that testifies to the persistent risk of forced sterilization. So we received that information, and we hope that your approach and the procedures that are currently underway to try and address the situation will succeed. I'll now move on to Article 19, living independently and being included in the community. According to our information, despite political commitments, Lithuania does still not have a comprehensive roadmap with measurable outcomes for the transition of all persons with disabilities from institutions and collective institutions towards more adapted living conditions. And apparently there is a lack of financial and legal mechanism to ensure autonomy within the communities, and this means that the burden of responsibility lies on families. Could you please provide information about action plans that have been rolled out at the national, provincial and municipal levels to ensure that persons with disabilities have their right to independent living and inclusion within the community? Could you also provide information about measures taken to ensure that all persons with disabilities, including those with a greater need for support, have the right to freely choose their place of residence on an equal footing with others, and to have access to a broad range of services at home and within the community to ensure that their living quality of life is maintained, such as personal assistance, for instance? Thank you.
Ačiū už gautus klausimus.
Thank you for the questions. The question is, Lithuania doesn't have a thorough action plan or roadmap, and what are the specific municipal and national roadmaps for people with disability to have the right to independent living and be included into the community? And what are the measures that all individuals, especially with the more severe needs, to be able to have an independent living and have access to all necessary services? The Ministry of Social Security and Labor, Violeta Toleikienė, please. Thank you for the floor. I will be speaking on behalf of the Lithuanian delegation. In order to implement Article 19 of the Convention, we are carrying out the institutional care reform. And this is focused primarily on people with severe disabilities. And the planning was carried out via the ministry, and the municipalities were not included actively in the planning. We assessed this experience critically, and currently the institutional care reform is being carried out in all municipalities via the regions and the regional development councils. Municipalities are drafting plans themselves on how to ensure that people with disabilities have the right to independent living in communities. We have two directions. One is for those individuals living in the community to remain there, not to drop out from the community. Another direction is for the individuals living in the nursing institutions so that they can come back to the community and get the necessary assistance. Planning is very intensive. One of the most important issues to be mentioned is that the municipality municipalities very clearly recognize the individuals with disabilities. They know their number by type of disability and age groups. They haven't planned their investments into the development of accessible living and community living homes. What we are yet missing is the homes, community living homes for people where 4 to 5 people live with very severe disabilities. The municipalities, together with NGOs, have planned the monitoring of the reforms of all the regions. We have noted this help to the municipalities, and we have agreed that in the autumn we are coming back to this, and municipalities will present their decisions. The assistance that is necessary is the infrastructure, the ensuring of infrastructure. However, the infrastructure alone will not solve the problems to ensure that people can live independently, because we need competences of our staff. So nationally, we are carrying out training for the staff so that they get the necessary competences to provide individualized assistance to people with disabilities. Thank you. The Social Security and Labor representative will supplement the question. I would like to mention that we have action plans of ensuring that people with disabilities are able to live in the community, and one of the main measures ensuring the participation of such people is the funding for that has increased, and the beneficiaries number has grown from 500 to 1,800, and the funding has grown from 500,000 to 11 million. And now we have legalized the dogs, assistant dogs. The municipality funds the preparation of such dogs, as well as we provide technical assistance measures for independent living in the community, and the number of beneficiaries has been growing recently. We carry out the coordination function at the municipality, which is new, which was established in 2024, so that at the municipality we have specific people assigned who are aware of the measures and are able to provide assistance to people with disabilities so that they can live independently. As of 2024, we have had a new measure, that is the adaptation compensation of the vehicles for people with disabilities who have a specific need to acquire such a vehicle. They can apply for an additional compensation to adapt the vehicle based on their type of disability. And this measure can be used by not only adults, but also the families raising children with disabilities. Another important measure allowing people to live independently is the adaptation of housing. As of 2021, the use of such measure has doubled. In 2021, we had only 407 housings like that. Now we are able to adapt at least 1,000 housings to make them accessible per year. However, the need has been satisfied only to up to 63%, because the need is growing and there are new measures appearing to receive the compensations. There are queues for the housing or accommodation to be adapted through the funding of the municipality, and there are also compensations given to satisfy individual needs. Thank you.
Merci donc pour votre réponse.
Thank you very much for your answer. We have spoken of deinstitutionalization, I believe, and in order to ensure, or rather prevent, a transition from larger institutions to small institutions and remain in the model, we need to understand that this is about moving towards the families and the communities and providing support to the families and communities in order to ensure they can help their disabled relative. You spoke about ensuring accessible vehicles are available. We will now move on to Article 20, which covers personal mobility. This is a really important measure that you have taken, and that is commendable. That being said, according to information we have received, despite that important step, the rules pursuant to which persons living in long-term healthcare institutions lose the right to certain assistive devices or residence or housing rights are deemed to be incompatible with the Convention, the Constitution. And it also appears that there is no voice synthesis technologies that are available in Lithuania, or available technologies, similar available technologies, despite the importance of such technologies for certain persons with disabilities. So the question is, what measures are you taking in order to address this situation? Thank you.
Ačiū už gautą klausimą.
Thank you for the question. The question is about people living in long-term healthcare establishments losing rights to certain technologies, and then there's a lack of voice synthesis technologies, and what are the measures to solve that? The Ministry of Social Security and Labor, Daiva Zaborowskienė, will respond. Thank you for the floor. I will note that individuals living in long-term healthcare institutions are provided with technical assistance measures. There are certain exceptions. For instance, they do not receive nursing beds because an establishment, in order to get a license, has to provide these conditions to the individuals themselves. Speaking about voice synthesis devices, we compensate sensoric devices, including software helping to communicate to people with hearing or visual disabilities or intellectual disabilities. These measures are partially reimbursed by state funds, and people use them very actively. Thank you for the floor.
Alors, bon, avec ce que vous...
Thank you. Well, given what you've said, what you offer, is it in Lithuanian? Because according to information we have received, Lithuania does not guarantee the development of voice synthesis technologies in Lithuanian or speech synthesis in Lithuanian. Do you provide these services in the Lithuanian language? Thank you.
Ačiū už klausimą.
Thank you for your question. And this question will be replied, namely whether measures are available in Lithuanian. So Daiva Zaborowskienė from the Social Protection Ministry will reply, yes. Some of the measures today are already offered in Lithuanian, but yes, we have a challenge that all of the means necessary for communication, that they should all be provided in Lithuanian. But we are working on it, and we expect that in the near future we will solve this problem.
Okay, merci. Alors, maintenant...
Thank you. Now, we have just finished our questions on Cluster 2, so we will give you the floor.
Présidente.
Madam Chair, we'll give you back the floor.
Thank you so much. Now, I would like to invite the other member of the committee to raise the question. Ms. Ravram Jacob, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some additional questions on Article 19, and I would start by saying that we have received extensive concerns about the ability of persons with disabilities to live independently and in the community. And the concerns deal with lack of support for persons with disabilities. This lack of support results in either those with disabilities receiving no personal assistance, or with the personal assistance that they receive coming from the family instead of from the state. Article 19 guarantees that the rights of persons with disabilities include the right to live independently and in the community. It's supplemented by a general comment, which focuses on persons with disabilities and specifies that they should be able to choose where they wish to live, with whom they'd like to live, and that they should have funding and other means of personal assistance. Yet, based on the information that we have received, it seems that persons with disabilities are not receiving sufficient personal assistance, and that this is having an impact on several other connected rights. So, for example, the right to participate in activities in the community, the right to leisure and recreational activities, the ability to attend school, work, things like that. So my questions to you, I have 4 questions and comments, a mixture. The first is a question: what measures have been put in place to ensure that there is accessible, reasonable amounts of personal support that satisfy the individual needs of persons with disabilities? My second question is, can you please describe how assessments are done for personal support? We've heard that the assessments vary across municipalities. How will they be streamlined so that they are consistent? A person should not have to or have different supports depending on which municipality they live in. My third point is a comment. It seems that extensive discretion is given to the municipalities in terms of the assessments and determinations of personal support. And this extensive discretion seems to be, seems that it would be helpful if it were guided by some sort of normative guidance to ensure that this discretion is exercised in a principled, fair, rights-based, and consistent way. And for that, I would suggest using the general comment on living independently and in the community developed by our committee. My fourth and final point is actually a question, and I'll stop after this. We've heard that individuals may be determined to have a duplication of services, but they generally don't find this duplication as sufficient. So it seems like a duplication, perhaps on the state party side. It doesn't necessarily on the side of those who have disabilities. What measures are being taken to ensure that duplications are when duplications actually do exist, they are eradicated, but when they don't, that is identified. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Morris, you have the floor.
Some questions for Article 20, which deals with personal mobility. In paragraph 167 of your report, you indicated that persons with disabilities have the right to purchase technical aids in any foreign country. This is most commendable. However, recognizing the economic challenges confronting persons with disabilities, why is it that you require them to purchase the equipment and then seek reimbursement? What is the turnaround time for this reimbursement? Can you please give us some data as to how many persons with disabilities have benefited from this initiative since 2017? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Excellency, you have the floor to respond from Mr. Jacob and Mr. Morris.
Ačiū už gautus klausimus.
Thank you for your questions. The first question: what measures are applied to ensure accessible and reasonable personal support which would satisfy the needs of persons with disabilities? Second question: how assessment for personal assistance are carried out and how equal practice is ensured in all municipalities? Third question: that there is broad discretion given to municipalities, and whether assessment of personal assistance should be based on guidelines and tools in order to create a uniform system. And question number 4, sometimes people receive duplicated services. How is this identified? And these questions will be responded by Daiva Zabrowskina from the Ministry of Social Protection. Thank you for the questions. Personal assistance service is quite new to our country. We started with it in 2021. We have tested it with NGOs, and we were looking for solutions in order to make it available for as broad a group of people as possible. Today, we have a new project on the provision of personal assistance. We've been working on it for half a year together with NGOs. We were looking for solutions related to the conducting of assessment in order to avoid making life too difficult for people and to avoid duplicating assessments. And we have found solutions that during the process of disability assessment, we fill out the questionnaire on individual needs, individual support, where we ask what individual means and support people need in order to be able to live in the community with dignity. And based on this, we decide on personal assistance. Also, we have specified the number of hours of support financed from the state budget. Municipalities also have the possibility to contribute from their own budgets if they want to finance additional hours. Concerning the duplication of services, we have a possibility, an alternative, when people get 3 services, so they get lower payments for those 3 services as in comparison if they were only receiving 1 service. But this is an incentive to use various services and receive personal assistance because in order to be assisted in carrying out certain activities together. Now, the discretion of municipalities. There is no more discretion for municipalities because now we have very clear criteria and very clear rules and procedures as to how, when, and based on what support should be determined, how it should be provided, etc. Thank you. Question number 5, why there is a requirement that people should first acquire, buy the equipment and only then get reimbursed? And how many people have used this since 2017 and how long does it last? It will be responded by Daiva Zabrowskina from the Ministry of Social Protection. Well, I will reply right away. That about how many people have purchased the equipment now and how many got reimbursed. I don't have this information. I will provide it in writing, but we have this possibility in order to enable people to choose the most suitable piece of equipment, and then they would be able to receive compensation. We also have an early payment mechanism when people select what they want to buy and then they get an advance payment document from the seller. And based on this document, our center that pays out the compensation can pay the compensation, can reimburse the person, and they can use this amount to pay for the equipment. And I will provide this information in writing, namely about how many people have used this possibility.
Thank you so much. Ms. Amalia Camillo, you have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and many thanks to the distinguished delegation for the answers provided thus far. I would like to say that the office of the parliamentary office of the Ombudsperson has found that residents in certain care homes were frequently locked into their rooms, or they were taken to the rooms of the so-called intensive supervision facility. In 2011, the investigation was shelved for having not found any criminal activity, I would like to know why the investigation was closed, which did indeed show gross violations of the rights of the persons who were resident there. And another comment, once again, about transinstitutionalization. I'd like to underscore that it is contrary to the guidelines on deinstitutionalization because although you have told us that the environment is better, they continue to have the same characteristics as an institution with a board, with regulations. They live with people whom they haven't chosen to live with. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Christopher Noor, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, the delegation from Lutemia. I know my question has been asked by Mr. Floyd Morris, but I still have some areas that I want to find out from Lutemia, whether they are safe or concerning Article 20. So about technology or devices used by people with disabilities. Since it has been confirmed that you don't manufacture or produce these things, are there mechanisms or steps taken by your country to ensure that effort will be made in future for the production of these technologies to make it affordable and accessible for people with disabilities in your country? And if that is the case, so what efforts are people making to provide this technology for people with disability in leukemia? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Excellency, you have the floor to respond.
Thank you for the questions. Question number one. People in care homes are locked in the rooms or intensive supervision rooms. There was an investigation on criminal liability. It was suspended. And what are the reasons for this? Next question. How do institutions maintain the same management principle? How is this in line with deinstitutionalization if nothing has changed, but the institution has become smaller only? And the representative of the Ministry of Social Protection and Labor will reply to that. Thank you. I will provide information on these questions. I wouldn't agree that most frequently people who have a challenged behavior are isolated in care institutions. Yes, there have been cases like this in Lithuania. I don't want to name publicly the name of the institution, but there was this shameful event, and we resorted to all possible measures to stop this behavior in respect of that person and to prevent any such cases in the future. The staff and the management of the institution have been subjected to sanctions, whereas the pre-trial investigation was suspended. I do not have details as to why it was so, but as a result, the state took urgent and active actions and steps to improve the competence of staff, because this case, when the person was isolated and kept in inhuman conditions, was related to the lack of competence of staff. Also, the WHO methodology was implemented, the quality rights methodology. There was an investigation and recommendations were prepared. Lithuania also have national quality requirements based on human rights. We do everything we can to avoid similar cases in the future. Thank you. The question will be supplemented by the Ministry of Social Protection representative. Thank you. As concerns children in care, and deinstitutionalization. I can ensure you most sincerely that we see deinstitutionalization not only as a breaking down of big institutions into smaller ones. I do agree that this doesn't change anything, and we have adequate measures for this. We work with based on community approach, the improvement of the qualifications of staff. Now we are launching a new project in accordance with the European Child's Guarantee, and it's meant to change the content in care institutions. We will implement evidence-based programs, for example, relational interventions, for example, that all staff working with children in care homes would work with a trauma-sensitive approach. Currently, we're also reviewing algorithms concerning response in cases of violence against children in institutions. We are creating an algorithm to ensure the safety of children and to provide them with tools to report possible violence. So we see all the elements of deinstitutionalization. It's not only about breaking down them into smaller institutions. Thank you. There was a question about that certain products are not manufactured in Lithuania. How does Lithuania make sure that the necessary products are accessible and affordable for people with disability in Lithuania? Thank you for the question. I'd like to stress that in Lithuania, technical assistance measures are procured by way of public procurement. It's an international procurement, and there are strict requirements for compliance, both in terms of technology and the needs of people with disabilities. So these products also are received from other progressive countries, and we have meetings of the specialized commission, which includes also the representatives of people with disabilities. We include in our procurement lists also innovative devices. In Lithuania, we also have a national conference and show of affordability for existing technologies. We have people in the ministry responsible for the placing on the market of these devices. They take part in various exhibitions. They bring back new innovative devices that are then included in our procurement lists, and people are supplied with these set devices as a result. Yes, there is room for improvement, of course, and these devices evolve much faster than our actions, but we do put in every effort we can, and together with companies that manufacture or sell similar devices, together with these companies, we look for ways of placing these devices on the Lithuanian market.
Thank you so much. Mr. Martino Lorenzo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And a very good morning to the delegation of Lithuania and to all colleagues from the committee, as well as all participants in this meeting. On the matter of indicators, particularly thinking about poverty and social exclusion of persons with disabilities in Lithuania, I'm particularly interested in certain groups such as older persons, women, and children. I wonder whether we can have more information about this. And I would also ask you whether you have any figures on invisible disability, whether there is any public discussion of invisible disability, and on illiteracy and persons that have no formal links with the state, in other words, persons without any civil registration papers. Do you have any indicators in these areas? And finally, I'm also interested in local authorities and persons with disabilities. I wonder whether there is any information on communication rehabilitation as well in connection with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Carol Lundorf, you have the floor.
So thank you, Chair. And I have a question under Article 20. You just mentioned that recently you started to implement guide dog service to persons with disabilities. Regarding that, I have one question. We received the information that persons with disabilities who are accompanied with the guide dog in some cases face some challenges. For example, is being refused to access some places that is open for public, such as restaurant, etc. So my question is, please provide information on the measures in place to ensure that persons with disabilities who use guide dog is have an equal opportunity to access some places open for public, such as restaurant, on an equal basis with others. So what kind of law enforcement mechanism are existing to correct such kind of violation? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Excellency, you have the floor.
Ačiū. Pirmas klausimas.
Thank you. The first question is related to the indicators about social exclusion and poverty among older people, women, and children. Then the invisible disability and illiteracy, the figures, and individuals without civil registration documents, how many of them we have. This question will be responded by Daiva Zavarauskienė from the Ministry of Social Security and Labor. Thank you. I will say at once that speaking about individuals without civil registration documents, we will provide that information in writing. We don't have it at hand. Speaking about invisible disability, we have a wide statistics, and we can look at it through various sections at the type of disability at one municipality or another based on its disability, gravity, severity, and type. This information is public and accessible both at the state data agency website and the Ministry of Social Security and Labor. Speaking about poverty, the state makes lots of effort to reduce poverty. We have provided for certain measures, increasing the benefits received. Every year, the basic amounts of benefits are recalculated and they are increased. Another important aspect is that the employment of people who are of the employment age within the labor market. At the moment, we are reviewing the labor law, and the amendments should reach the parliament in the spring. We hope that there will be new measures adopted that will allow to respond properly to the standard of living of individuals. The EU average shows that the poverty risk of women with disabilities accounts for 21-22%. Among males, among men, it's approximately 20%. In Lithuania, the gender gap is higher. Based on our recent data, the situation in 2024 and 2025 show that the poverty risk gap among men and women with disabilities has decreased. However, the risk of poverty has increased for people with disabilities in general, and people with disabilities and children's poverty are exposed to a higher level of risk of poverty. The question will be supplemented by Kristina Stepanova. Thank you for the question. I will give you some data regarding children's poverty. As of 2025, children's poverty has dropped from 27.2 to 16.9%. In 2025, children's poverty risk level accounted for 16.9%, which has been the lowest indicator during the last 2 decades. If we take a shorter period of time and compare it with 2015, the children's risk of poverty is 29%. That is, in 10 years, the children's poverty risk indicator has dropped by over 40%, which is a huge change. And in Lithuania, we are trying to reduce the poverty through various combined measures, and this gives the result. Now, the question about assistant dogs and the inaccessibility of certain public areas, Dava Zabarowskina will respond to the question. Yes, we did have a situation when an individual with a guide dog was not allowed to enter the public transport. As a result of that, we have reviewed our laws on the rights of people with disability, and we have a new version as of May 2026, including a new article about guide dogs. This says that an individual assisted by such a dog can access all public areas and buildings irrespectively of their purpose, and make use of all types of transport, including taxi services and private cars. And it has also been noted that a guide dog that is a study dog can also access all public areas, public transport and buildings. There are certain exceptions. If a guide dog becomes a threat to the surrounding people or animals, for instance, if this is a zoo, the law obliges the guide or assistant dog to be left in a specific premise, in a specific room where they should be kept safely, and the person with disability has to be assisted by a person, a human person. Thank you. Speaking about the implementation about the rehabilitation in municipalities, the director of the People with Disability Agency, Agli Chaplikina, will reply. Thank you. As of 2016 to 2022, social rehabilitation projects in the community were funded in all 60 municipalities. We supported such services as the day care of people with disabilities, help and assistance provided when visiting authorities, and assistance to family members having family people with disabilities. Now, social services are accredited and provided as an accredited social service. NGOs provide the largest number of such services. They are local and funded by the municipality, and this has increased the accessibility of services and the equal quality standards and long-term funding. Every year, we spend approximately 5 million euros on this service, and 10,000 people are beneficiaries of this service. We have another important measure, that is the service of ensuring social participation for people with visual impairments. Every individual receives an individual assistance on for instance, finding ways to participate in the community when they get a visual impairment. Every year, we train approximately 32 people when funding the service, and usually NGOs provide such services. These are the people who know best how to provide it. Thank you.
Kwasi of the task force for cluster 2, the other member of the committee and the distinguished delegation for their questions and response and for the information provided committee concerning cluster 2. Now we will take a 15 minutes break. The meeting will restart 11:05. Thank you so much. Distinguished delegate and colleagues, may I ask you take a seat? Now we will resume the 851st meeting. We move to Cluster 3, covering Article 21 to 30 of the Convention. I give the floor to our task force member responsible for this cluster, Mr. Floyd Morris, to begin the questions. Mr. Morris, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to take this opportunity, Madam Chair, to welcome the distinguished delegates of Lithuania and to say that I'm very appreciative of their presence because this constitutes their second and third periodic report, and it shows a significant appreciation and respect for the work of the committee, and they have been honoring their obligation. And based on comparing the work that has been done from the concluding observation that was last made to the report submitted now, I realize that progress has been made. And so I am very, very appreciative of their effort, and I want to commend them and to say that at this committee, our work is not about persecuting countries, states, parties for not implementing the treaty. We are about assessing the work that they have done and to assist in guiding the way forward. And with that in mind, Madam Chair, I have a number of questions that I will be asking in this cluster, and then later my committee members and task force members would ask other questions and also follow-ups. So I start with Article 21, which deal with freedom of expression and access to information. In paragraph 169 of your report, you indicated that methodological assessments were done and adopted for websites. These standards were mandatory for the public sector, but served as guidance for the private sector. Why is this so for the private sector when accessibility is an ex-ante duty and services, once open to the public, must be accessible to persons with disabilities? In paragraph 170, you indicated commendably that some 103 sign language interpreters provided 56,079 sign language interpretations for 3,990 persons who are deaf annually. What proportion of the deaf population does this represent? What persons who are deaf-blind have access to information on an equal basis with others? And those are the three questions for cluster for Article 21.
Excellency, you have the floor.
Ačiū.
Thank you. Question number 1. The report says that the methodological evaluation regarding the website's adaptability and the guidelines for the private sector are only as a recommendation. Why? The second question regarding sign language interpreters. 103 interpreters providing interpretation to people with hearing disabilities. What is the proportion of the population? And question number 3, the accessibility to information of people with hearing disabilities on equal grounds with everybody else. Erple Chaplikini, please. Thank you for the question. Question number 1, speaking about the responsibility of the business sector. This has been provided for, and as of 2025, the 28th of June, a new law on accessibility has come into effect, and it says that all producers and distributors and service providers have to ensure that electronic products and digital services comply with accessibility requirements. And that also covers part of the accessibility of websites. This is being monitored by the State Digital Data Agency, and they check whether the requirements are complied with. There are lots of methodological consultations provided on the compliance with accessibility requirements for websites. The Consumer Rights Protection Agency is also responsible for controlling the accessibility of websites. So all these questions of accessibility are regulated and monitored. The second question is about sign language accessibility. Not all people with hearing disabilities or deaf people, not all of them know sign language. Some people lose their hearing at older age and don't learn sign language. That's why not everybody needs the service. That's why our sign language interpretation center that covers the need up to 98% satisfy the needs of the community with hearing disabilities. It has also been regulated that all public information has to be provided by sign language interpreters, and the unchangeable information is in language so that it is accessible to people with visual impairments as well. Question number 3. What measures exist to ensure that people with hearing disabilities have the same? Recently, we have installed a new information system. People with hearing disabilities, by way of that software or app, has the possibility to communicate by the phone through people who have no hearing disability, and also to the people who have the hearing disability. This is a free app which is called LGT remote sign. They may, when we get connected remotely with a sign language interpreter, and this opportunity exists 24/7, and they can talk to anybody by way of this app. So I believe that these measures are being implemented. Thank you.
The question was specific to deaf-blind individuals. Measures are in place to ensure that deaf-blind persons have access to information on equal basis with others. So yes, you provide access to information for persons who are deaf and hard of hearing, but this is a specific grouping of persons with disabilities, those who are deafblind, who have to use a lot of tactile measures. And so we want to find out what measures are in place for those individuals.
Ačiū už gautus klausimus. Klausimai asmenys, kurie
Thank you for the questions. What measures exist for people who have both hearing and visual impairments, that is, are deaf and blind? How can they communicate with everybody else? What measures exist for that? Agle Chaplikiene from the Agency of the Protection of People with Disabilities. She will respond to the question. Thank you. I understand that we're speaking about individuals with complex impairments and disabilities. This is the journey we are just starting. We are starting to design those services. We have the possibility, and we cooperate with the Lithuanian Deaf People's Association, and we are funding their project to start creating a mechanism on information accessibility and assistance to such people with complex and composite disabilities. But this is just the start of our journey.
Move on to Article 23, respect for the home and the family. And in the concluding observation in 2016, the committee called upon your government to repeal provisions restricting persons with disabilities to have a family and own a home. Can you please explain or clarify what steps have been made to address this situation? In paragraph 177, you indicated that legal amendments were made allowing for the declaration of persons as legally incapable in specific areas. Can you please clarify what this means in the context of persons with disabilities in your country? So those are two questions there, and then I'm going to go into Article 24.
Thank you for your questions. The question is that the committee suggested the government to give up the prohibition restriction to have a family and house and home. What steps have been made to implement this recommendation? And Indra Balchunia from the Ministry of Social Protection and Labour will reply. Thank you for the question. As I understand this question, it is again about our reform, about the abolishment of the Institute of Incapacity and Limited Capacity. As we said already, we have projects on this, and we see it as a priority. We are working to agree on these projects with the stakeholders and NGOs, and we do hope that next year we will adopt these draft proposals. Thank you. And this answer is going to be supplemented by Agla Chaplikin from the agency. A person can be found incapable in various areas, for example, the financial area and in the area of a family, and the right to have a family is the most sensitive issue. We are actively working on this question. We provide people with support while taking decisions, also while fighting and preventing the establishment of incapacity in these areas. We initiate court proceedings as well, so that people can preserve their legal capacity or to have it restricted as little as possible. We have 20 success stories when procedures were terminated because it was found that with support, people can live in a family and can establish a family. And we do hope that this reform will finally abolish this legal incapacity institute.
I think, Madam Chair, that it is fair to say that this declaration or this capacity to declare persons with disabilities incapable is a violation of the fundamental rights of persons with disabilities, and I'm going to come back to this at a later stage of this cluster in Article 29 on this matter. Article 24, education. In paragraph 179 of your report, you indicated that in 2019, there were 44 special purpose general education schools catering to 3,800 students with disabilities. This was 7 years ago. Can you please indicate to this committee if there has been any reduction in these schools and the students with disabilities transitioned into the general education system? In paragraph 180 of your report, you indicated that 89% of students with disabilities are attending general education institutions. Can you please indicate what is the situation with the other 11% and what are the plans to have these individuals included in the general education institutions as recommended by the committee's last concluding observations? In the last sentence of paragraph 182 of your report, you stated the network of autism special spectrum school is being built. Can you please clarify this statement for members of this committee? Are you building schools exclusively for students who are autistic? In paragraph 185 of your report, you pointed to shortfalls in a number of professionals that are needed to the general education system for persons with disabilities. This goes against the recommendations made in the 2016 concluding observation of the committee. What plans and strategies are being put in place to correct these deficits? I'm going to break here and allow you to answer those questions, and then I come back to another set of questions relating to Article 24?
Thank you for your questions. First question, in 2019, there were 44 special needs schools. Whether this number of schools has been reduced and the number of students with the disability was reduced, whether these children were moved to general education system. 89% of students with a disability go to general education schools. What's the situation with the remaining 11%? And question number 3, there is a network being developed for students with the autism spectrum disability. Does this mean that Lithuania establishes these schools exclusively for students with an autism spectrum disability? And what are the plans and strategies to remove the shortcoming, the lack of professionals? And the Ministry of Education will respond. Concerning the first question, I'd like to clarify the information. Currently, in 2025-26, we had 33 specialized schools, and it's a sharp reduction as compared with the data presented in the last report. So the number of specialized schools is on the decrease. Now turning to the number of students in these schools, there have been no changes in the number of students. In the past 3 years, it's remained stable, slightly over 3,600 students. And in these specialized schools, we have students who have very serious special needs. So the stable figures could be explained by the fact that the overall trend of people with special disabilities is increasing in Lithuania. In 2023, there were more than 17,000 of children with a disability, and in 2025, we have more than 19,000. And this explains the unchanged number of students in specialized schools. Now turning to question number 2. Currently, students with disabilities that go to general education establishment amount to 59%. The 89% mentioned in the report would correspond with the figure of students with special educational needs who go to general education establishments. Now, if we talk about students with a disability and the 59% in 2025, so the speaker says in 2029, the number of these children was 49%. And we don't have any specialized schools exclusively for children with autism spectrum disorders. Maybe the report mentioned specialized consultation centers in the regions. Today we have 9 centers like this, but they are not educational establishments. They simply provide advice to schools concerning various disorders. Now, the shortage of specialists, of professionals in the educational area. Yes, their role is very important in inclusive education, and let me stress that in the past 3 years, in different categories, their number increased by more than 40%. I'm talking here about specialized educational specialists, speech therapists, also assistants of teachers. And the financing has been increased threefold since 2020, from 2 to 25 million.
Mr. Morris, you have the floor.
Here, just 2 follow-ups here. because you indicated that in 2025 there are 33 special education institutions, and that this is a sharp reduction from the 44 that was reported in your early report. I want to find out if you have a strategic plan to reduce these special education institutions over time, and to make sure that you have an inclusive education system where students with disabilities are in the mainstream education system. And the second thing is that in the report that I saw this information about this network of schools or network for students with special needs who are autistic. So that's why I asked the question, is it a school that is being established, a specific institution for students who are on the autism spectrum? So I would like to get some clarity where those two issues are concerned before I go on to the next question.
Ačiū už gautus klausimus. Prašau švietimo ir mokslo ministerijos.
Thank you. Please, the representative of the Ministry of Education, could you please elaborate on strategic plans about how to reduce the number of these schools and whether the system is inclusive? I would like to clarify that in our national progress report and our strategic Lithuanian document, we have foreseen that in 2030 we should achieve 90% of students with disability being educated inclusively in general education establishments. And we have foreseen a number of measures to achieve this. In fact, we have 5 strategic directions. For example, the establishment of special needs, strengthened educational support, better organization of education, while adapting our general education schools to students with the disabilities. Also, by strengthening our regional centers, of which we have 9 newly established ones, and we have 4 national support centers specializing in consulting and providing support. Also, we have financial measures. We have a project, a support project, which will help us ensure that 99% of all students with special needs should have special assistance devices and equipment. So we have foreseen a number of tools and actions that we believe will help us achieve this indicator. Now turning to the autism spectrum, let me clarify again that we do not have and we are not establishing any specialized schools or special classes in general education establishments for this group of students. In fact, all children, depending on their individual needs, they are being integrated in general education establishments, and the network of general education schools include children with special needs in all municipalities. Currently, 85 of children with special educational needs, including autism spectrum disorders, go to general education schools. And in 42 out of 60 municipalities, there is an increase of such children. So the situation is changing throughout the country.
The report that I read indicated that 89% of students with disabilities are in the general education system. And so if your strategic framework is pointing to a target of 90% by 2030, it means that in 2026, you're 1 percentage point away. And I am certain that you would want to make sure that the figure is much more than 90% when you reach 2030, so that it synchronizes with the provisions of the CRPD and also the 2030 development agenda of our target 4. So there needs to be some relook at that particular strategic framework. But I will move on, Madam Chair, to the rest of questions under Article 24. In paragraph 187 of your report, you indicated that a code of ethics for education was adopted in 2018. Can you please indicate if this is a legally binding document and is specific to students with disabilities? The CRPD committee, in its concluding observation of 2016, recommended specifically that measures must be put in place to facilitate reasonable accommodations, amongst other things. Where is your country with this recommendation for the education of students with disabilities? The concluding observation of 2016 also stipulated that you should set clear timelines, targets, baselines, and indicators to secure time-bound and measurable progress. Can you please indicate where are you with this? In paragraph 196 of your report, you highlighted different financial support that is given to students with disabilities at various higher level education institutions. However, these seem inadequate in light of the needs of persons with disabilities. Can you indicate to this committee the adequacy of these funding support and what can be done to increase these for students with disabilities? And those are the questions that I have for Article 24.
Ačiū už gautus klausimus.
Thank you for the questions. Question 1, Code of Ethics for Education, whether it's legally binding. Question 2, adequate reasonable accommodation in education should be ensured for students with disabilities. What's the situation in Lithuania? Question 3, inclusive education. What's the situation in Lithuania with this? There has to be clear timelines and indicators. Question 4, financial assistance to students with disabilities at higher level education establishments. What are Lithuania's plan for increasing financing for students with disability? This will be replied by the Ministry of Education representative. Let me begin by indicators. We have strategic documents, as I said, the National Progress Plan and Education Progress Plan, where we have the key indicators that our country is trying to achieve in the area of inclusive education. These indicators are related not only with the education support provision, but also with the inclusion of students with disabilities into general education establishments and general classes, also infrastructure adaptation in general education establishments. We have interim reports. We are monitoring the indicators. The indicators are set until 2030, and we regularly review them. As I said, we have these indicators in all main strategic areas. Concerning the Code of Ethics, it's a legally binding document. It's stipulated also in the law on education. Its provisions are being integrated into various qualification improvement programs. Also, our qualification improvement programs are prepared taking into account this code, and they adapt these programs to inclusive education topics. Now, concerning higher education schools, we have currently incentives for students studying in higher educational establishments. I'm talking about universities and similar schools. Currently, we provide assistance to students with disabilities, and we have a targeted benefit that can be claimed by students with disabilities. So this benefit is indexed every year, and currently this benefit may amount to 800 euros. We see that the number of students with disabilities is on the increase in the past years. The increase has been rather sharp. We now have more than 1,500 of such students. And the third question concerning indicators will be replied by the Ministry of Education. Thank you. Let me clarify about the indicators. I have merged two questions into one, because strategic indicators are related with the provision of educational support and the availability of services, and also with the number of students who have a disability or special educational needs. All of this is stipulated in our strategic documents and action plans, and we regularly review our progress. And in 2030, the majority of national indicators are related with 2030, and in 2030 we will have the final evaluation. And currently we are reviewing national plans, and if there is a need, we will consider including additional indicators in order to achieve desirable progress.
Madam Chair, I have some follow-ups here. I want to know if in this review of the strategic framework, if persons with disabilities are included and consulted on a regular basis where these indicators are concerned, because, you know, the treaty requires that persons with disabilities be regularly consulted on matters relating to them. I haven't heard an answer to the question about reasonable accommodation, and I think that I would want to hear what are the measures in place to provide reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities. And the question about the funding support was more about the adequacy of the funding, because we know that have a lot of peculiar challenges that they have to deal with. It costs more for a person with disability to function on a daily basis, and that is establishing a number of research across the world. And so I want to know if the funds that are allocated are adequate for these students and what can be done to provide additional support where this is concerned. Those are the follow-ups that I have.
Ačiū už gautus klausimus.
Thank you for the questions. The first question is whether during the reviewed strategy, people with disabilities have been included in decision making. The second question specify the adaptation of educational conditions to people with disabilities, and then whether the funding is adequate and sufficient. The Ministry of Education and Science, Regina Velocity, will respond to the questions. Thank you. Question number one, the involvement of NGOs. I would like to emphasize that in 2024, there was the ministerial order establishing an advisory group regarding the inclusive education, and it meets 4 to 6 times per year, and if need be more. And within this group, we have some NGO representatives that represent people with various disabilities. And we regularly meet NGOs within the format of educational agency to discuss various strategic and informational questions. I would like to note that the review of strategic indicators is the exercise coordinated by the government, and other ministries have been involved in this process. And of course, we will also involve NGO representatives because they review both the strategic directions of the state and the strategic indicators. Speaking about the accessibility of premises for people with disabilities or various other infrastructure, I will note that we have very clear indicators, 5 indicators that general educational schools have to comply with. And this year, they have to comply with at least 2 of compulsory indicators. And as of 2026, the 1st of September, the number of indicators will be higher. That is the 3. And today, 3% of schools comply with all the indicators, and according to the ministerial statistics, 93% of schools are partially compliant. We also have statistical data based on separate criteria, and we will be able to separately provide it to the committee. Now, the students. This is a new financial incentive which is related to the basic standard of living, and respectively This financial incentive is indexed every year, which means that the increase of benefits is over 50%. So the state assesses various financial indicators and tries to ensure that this financial incentive through social benefits complies with the needs of students with disabilities. Without those financial incentives, these students also receive general incentives, which are allocated to people with disabilities. In other words, the mentioned financial assistance is only the assistance meant for studies adaptation. Thank you. The Ministry of Social Security and Daiva Zaborowskiene will supplement the response. Thank you. I will mention that without the mentioned benefits, people with disabilities have the right to the compensation of individual costs from 131 to 159 euros per month. And the objective of this assistance is to compensate the costs related to disability, that is the cost that the state doesn't cover. Moreover, when studying, certain technical assistance measures are applicable, helping people with disabilities to study, for instance, sign language interpretation and other measures. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I want to just follow up on the issue of reasonable accommodation and just to assist you a little, because reasonable accommodation is specific to individual students with disabilities who are in the education system, and they need these measures in order to perform on an equal basis with others. And so we talk about things like, extra time for students to do their exams, the provision of sign language interpretation, the provision of Braille, provision of assistive technology, etc. And that is what we want to find out. If these measures are in place in the education system to ensure that students with disabilities are able to perform on an equal basis with others.
Thank you for the question. The question is about the reasonable accommodation and how this is ensured for students with disabilities so that they can study and perform on equal terms with others. And this is also related to Braille and sign language interpretation, whether these measures exist in our educational system. Regina, please. Yes. Thank you for the question. Individual adaptation is applied both in the general education and higher educational and vocational educational schools. Speaking about the general educational system, the individual plan is usually proposed by the educational and psychological services. They identify special needs and through their educational assistance specialists and various centers, they set specific measures and methods. They adapt the curriculum and every person with special educational needs is granted such individualized assistance. Speaking about higher education schools, an individual has to fill out a specific form where they identify their needs and they meet a coordinating in person and become entitled to all mentioned measures, including the individually adapted measures. And this is provided not only during the regular learning time, but also during various exams, for instance, graduation exams, both at general education and higher educational schools. Thank you.
Here I'm going to expedite my questions now because I see that I'm restricted by time and I don't want to get in any problem with my chair. So I'm going to be asking these questions in doubling the articles. So I'll take Article 25 and 27 together, and then 28 and 29. And those will be the final sets of questions that I'll ask. So here we go. Article 25. In your report, you cited a number of training and education measures that have been implemented for health professionals. Are these training sessions anchored in ableism among health professionals? The CRPD Committee of 2016 expressed concerns about sexual and reproductive health care for persons with disabilities. Yet, there is no mention of this in your current report. Can you please indicate what measures have been put in place to provide universal access to sexual and reproductive health care, including family planning and information sharing, as well as public education? Article 27, work and employment. You have indicated that the total population of employed persons with disabilities of working age is 29%. At the same time, the committee in its 2016 concluding observations recommended that measures be put in place to abolish the concept of working incapacity and special workshops for persons with disabilities. Can you please indicate what strategic framework has been developed to achieve this recommendation, and to indicate where are you with special workshop elimination for persons with disabilities? In paragraph 211 of your report, you indicated the extent of support to be provided by employers to accommodate persons with disabilities with employment. However, you have given an out to employers when you state that unless such measures would impose a disproportionate burden on the employer. What safeguards have been put in place to ensure that employers do not abuse this situation and use it as an excuse not to employ persons with disabilities? So those are the questions that I have there for Articles 25 and 27, and then I'm going to wrap up with some questions for 28 and 29.
Mr. Morris, because close to 2 and 10 minutes only, so you can have 10 more minutes until 12:15. So please ask the necessary questions.
Now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Article 28, adequate standard of living and social protection. In paragraph 223 of your report, You indicated that absolute poverty was projected to be high news. Can you please outline to us what is the situation with poverty and persons with disabilities in your country? In the committee's recommendation of 2016, your country was required to deal with the stereotyping, dealing with the discounts and vouchers for persons with disabilities. Can you please indicate what measures have been put in place to deal with this problem? And Article 29, participation in politics and public life. You have indicated, and this is a question that I indicated that I would come back to in terms of legal capacity. You have indicated in paragraph 236 that in 2019, legislation was established banning the exclusion of participation in election on the basis of disability. But you also indicated in paragraph 234 that the courts have the capacity to declare individuals legally incapable in the area of elections. What are the criteria used by the courts in making such declarations? Do you have persons with disabilities in your current parliament? And if yes, how many? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the questions. Question number 1. The training to healthcare specialists, have they been based on the human rights model to adapt them to people with disabilities? 2, how do we ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health, covering educational activities as well? The Ministry of Health representative Ramunė Atrušaitienė will respond to those questions. Thank you. I will respond about the training to healthcare specialists. Please note that the training was meant to the specialists so that they better provide the services to people with disabilities, especially those who have a mental disability. That's why mental health experts, psychiatrists, nurses, and psychiatric hospital representatives participated in the training, as well as other individuals. Yes, the training was organized in order to ensure people with disability the receipt of healthcare services by people with disability. I will also mention that the training was on also finding alternatives to isolation or other restrictive measures. So this is to respond to the first question. Now, speaking about the reproductive health for women and girls with disabilities. Please note that these services are provided on an equal basis and they are integrated into the general healthcare system. However, when talking about the provision of such services to women and girls with disabilities, we should be speaking about their accessibility. Here, I will mention that when providing the services, especially at the primary level, and in case of consulting doctor specialists, we are expanding doctoral teams, especially at the primary level. And we have a case manager that helps people with disabilities to get a better orientation within the services of health care. We also offer transportation services in order to receive healthcare services. In the electronic health records, we will introduce a column where an individual, when registering for the healthcare services, will be able to indicate what specific assistance they need in order to receive healthcare services. Now, speaking about reproductive health, women and girls receive the funding from the state of various reproductive health related services, like keeping the pregnancy and so on. And women, expectant women with disabilities, receive the service of family attendance when an obstetrician with a team comes to their homes during the during the pregnancy, and allow and help with the child up until the age of 2. Please note that we also compensate contraceptive measures for men and women, and artificial fertilization procedures. Number 3, what strategic structures do we have in order to avoid, in order to abandon the legal incapacity concept, in order to have no longer have the workshops for people with disabilities. The ministerial attaché, Dabushinskina, will reply to the question. Thank you. On behalf of the Lithuanian delegation, I will respond the following. Lithuania has taken all measures to facilitate people with disability, to protect people with disability in the open labor market, and we have abandoned segregated workplaces, and we have made null and void the social enterprise law. All employers are entitled to a subsidy when they need to adapt their workplace. The participation, the subsidy may account for 75% of the salary. In order to avoid such cases, when a company used to have a social enterprise status, we have made certain amendments to the law, and the subsidy period it has been adapted to the 12th month of cooling down period. The labor code very clearly notes that every workplace has to be safe and contain no health hazards. The law provides that the workplace has to take into account the physical capacities of an individual, and subsidies are paid to adapt the workplace, as well as for acquiring technical assistance measures, and the amount is up to 31 monthly salary. Speaking about the abuse cases by employers, a person with disability may address the labor authority or equal opportunities agency. Thank you. Daiva Zabarauskene will respond to the next question. Thank you. Speaking about poverty among people with disabilities, in Lithuania, we observe higher poverty levels among people with disabilities. The poverty risk among those people is double than among those who have no health disabilities. And from 2016 to 2025, we have observed the poverty risk up to 50%. Now it accounts for 53.3%, and the government is going to review the labor law and will increase the benefits and will exempt people from various taxes, like social taxes. They will pay targeted compensations, will also provide a personal assistant, and this assistance is paid through the compensation of individual services. Discount cards have been introduced in Lithuania, and there are family cards also given to family members who have people with disability in the family, and these cards offer various discounts in shopping centers, various events, and so on.
Į 7 klausimą dėl
Question number 7 on the criteria used in courts and establishment of incapacity will be replied by the Ministry of Justice. Thank you. To respond to this question, our cassation court has decided that incapacity status is a very serious measure applied only in exceptional cases. Therefore, when the court decides on incapacity in the area of elections, medical and juridical criteria have to be thoroughly assessed. The mental illness and the ability to assess their own actions. So it is analyzed how a person is able to evaluate their actions, and this is one of the key criteria. Question number 8 about the number of people with disability in the parliament currently will be responded by Indrė Kižienė, who is a member of parliament. Good afternoon. Thank you for the floor. In this parliamentary term of the duration from 2024 to 28, out of 141 MPs, we do not have any parliamentary members with a visible or physical disability. In terms of an invisible disability, we do not have such data. The parliament doesn't publish this type of data. In the previous term of 2022-24, there were there was one member of parliament with a physical disability, and she chaired the parliamentary committee on people with disabilities. Actually, let me clarify. In the previous term, there were 2 people with physical disability. One of them chaired the committee on people with disabilities. There was also another person with the disability of sight. And in the current term, we do not have any members of parliament with a physical disability, and we do not have data about an invisible disability. Thank you.
Chair, just 2 quick follow-up questions. One, I asked specifically about the training and if the health professionals were trained in the human rights model of disability, because we have found that globally in the health profession, this is where the issue of ableism is most pervasive in terms of how health professionals view and treat persons with disabilities, and wanted to find out if the human rights model featured in the training. Also, as it relates to the question on Article 28 that deals with the stereotyping relating to the discounts on vouchers. That was a concern coming from the previous committee and concluding observation, because, you know, persons with disabilities who had these vouchers were being seen and perceived in a particular way based on the reports that were received, and wanted to find out what measures have been put in place to ensure that persons with disabilities are not seen in a negative light, those who are using those vouchers. So those two follow-up questions there, Madam Chair.